Welcome back, Michael Wickerson here. Just a little loosen up video to let people relax a bit, not take Python too seriously with Grasshopper, but it'll move you beyond bar charts and pie charts if you start thinking about simple Python scripts that can inform some geometries. What I have here is kind of a random, I'm having fun with it. It's my sandbox. I'm looking at all my scripts that I learned how to do the lists in before getting the tuples and sets. Just brought in the simplest script, which basically checks if numbers are in a set. Couldn't be more easy than that. It uses names, put the names of my kids in. But if you take that and you bring it down here into a sandbox, and that's what I've done. And in the sandbox, I allow myself a lot of freedom to play around with simple grids, simple booleans, spheres, whatever that I'm used to doing in Grasshopper, and I'm driving that by data. And because I'm driving it by data, I've used the exact same script, except I've brought in parameters, high range, a count, and a number. So I pretty much looked at that script to learn Python and then jazzed it up into this. And even though it says Python 3, it doesn't have to say that. You just say Python 2 because it's similar code. I imported random. I produced a random list that has a parameter of random range to the high range, which I can input and change. And then I have a count that I can count how many I want in that list. And I'm basically generating a list. And you see the list that's generated right here. That's it. Now you could be pulling these numbers through data science and looking at CSV files and whatever you want online. But that doesn't matter. Start small with scripts, get them up and running on your out, get your num list pumping out, and take your new number list, which I wrote down here, instead of, I just squared it. I didn't even use a square function in math. I just used num times num. And then basically, if the number and its square shows up in the set, it will generate a list. And that list will be empty if not. So there's an if-else statement. It's using the for loop. It's enough of a script. You run it. You have fun with it. And because I did a little bit of geometry, as I go, this will generate right here a geometry. That's where it happens to be right now. The other ones are all set in here. I can set everything visually off, preview off. You're not seeing any grids, but it's nice to see a few things to kind of understand what's happening. So what I'll do is I'll grab that grid. Actually, probably I will just leave it all on because it's not going to matter anyhow. Preview on. It's a grid that's generating these two spheres and Boolean unioning them, differencing them. So that's why I call them Death Star, because they look like a little Death Star model when they're done, when you do the little union. And then it teleports those Death Stars of different random sizes around the board. But of course, they don't work all the time. So what's nice is if the number isn't in the list and the square isn't in the list, it'll come up being false, true, true, false, or false, false. But unless it comes up true, true, as I slide around these numbers from 0 to 5, you'll see they don't always generate. They only generate a geometry when they come up true, true. And if they do, they then immediately use that data to satellite it out in the grid. Now, they're all facing the same direction. It's not that exciting. But we've got a quick bake on here as well, which is nice. So it'll bake us true whenever something works. So you could use a gene pool, you could use data, you could use a timer, you could use anything, or you could just have fun and just slide this around like it's a game. And there you go. You're just sliding it around and you're generating Death Stars of different radii as you go. Yes, you can produce one that's within another one as you go, but unless they're true, true, nothing happens. The script doesn't run. And this is the type of playfulness that I'm having because my mathematical mind is pretty, basic to understand the data that's driving these things. But I'm learning scripting in the process, which is nice. I'm learning applications of some very boring introductory scripts of how to use methods with lists. But if you learn this and you get creative at this level, you're going to have a wonderful time. And of course, the reds are things that don't work in Python 2. But you can actually apply some very simple scripts to numbers. You do not have to get into Rhino script syntax to jazz up and make things happen in Grasshopper at all. As long as you have a sense of how to build things from just, it's okay that your script's a little slower than the Python's going to be or a plugin's going to be, but play so you learn. It'll make learning fun. You'll get Python down. You'll be able to understand C programming. You could jump over to Swift. You could jump over to R. You'll see the applications there, but you'll also make some very interesting models that might end up being geometries that you end up using. I don't think I'm going to use them. I don't know if my turntable will work. Oops, turntable, as I'm generating these, but wouldn't that be nice if it did? And I think it will. I think it will. So I can have this little game. It's not the most exciting game in the world. I haven't complicated it, but you can see that I'm baking in these little Death Stars as I'm just sliding this slider and letting Python do the math, check it, do the booleans, do the tests, and run a little faster than, taking this script out, which you could very well make the list, use your ranges, type all these in, have nodes, and have the same fun. But it's nice that you realize the real engine running this is that little bit of a number generator and that Boolean generator. That's all it's doing. You've broken it down. You could call out with it, or you could use your logic, which is nice. That's why I like the script, because I'm using those things I learned earlier, those conditionals. Has num has to equal true, and has num square has to equal true, and then I can set the new num list to something new. I didn't set the num list to that because I still want to use the num list as a number slider through list item. And if you just take a look at the script, it should make easy enough sense through list items. Nothing tough in here to use. Making points I didn't even center from the center of each sphere, which I could have done. There's so much you can add to this as you go. So creep through all of these little tiny ones, pull them down into your sandbox. Here's another one that's a conditional append, which I kind of almost did, but I could have a conditional append up and running for the next one. Just with the if-else statement, even though I'm using my names, I'll convert those over to the most basic numbers, not even floats, just integers. And then those integers can drive some very interesting, playful scripts. And you've learned Python, you've got Grasshopper around in your head, and you can start thinking about what you're doing. If it's just play, that's fine, but if it's solving problems and making better visuals, I will show, for an example, I am playing around here with a geometry that represents my property, which is basically up for sale. There's views, there's people viewing it, there's people visiting the house, and there'll soon be bids. And it's got to be the easiest script you could possibly imagine, but that visual is something I can show my realtor and say, listen, I've got evidence of houses selling at this price, I've got houses of properties selling without houses here, and you're producing some really nice, playful visuals. And why not incorporate the Death Star in your own kind of crazy way? So this is what I'm all about. It's you want to find an interest, you want to make it interesting, you want to mix your visualization and your artistic, creative, science interests with the principles of mathematics on the most basic level, and help people create something that's more intriguing. Even though you could pull in my opinion, you could pull in Matplot Library and deal with incredible libraries and geometries. But if you're somebody that thinks in 3 dimensions and you like making things, why not let the data drive your forms? There's so much data you can access. And if we're talking like just grab a CSV file and open it up and you've got that data, you can start dealing with big data in very simple ways to start make visuals that make sense to people. I'm not going to work for the real estate company, but I am going to find out when my house is up for sale and people are looking at it the most, because all that's available to me on Zillow. And let's see what happens. And if I become a millionaire, well, then I can hire some really quick data coders to put this all together and answer my questions. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Michael at Wickerson Studios. I'll go back over to our little fun grid work here. There it is. And I'm just going to have a sandbox for these tools before I go in and jump into tuples and sets and then onto a whole chapter on dictionaries. Just imagine if you get this down and you start playing with functions and classes and then the modules and then into all the modules that make Grasshopper and Python just terrific to use. And if you're not one for C#, it's probably good to start with Python, but it's going to be easy for those that want to play across boundaries and know C# a little bit first. Another 10-minute video. I hope you're intrigued. I hope you have fun with this. It's very exciting to me. I'm enjoying it like crazy. And yes, I've gotten down and realized why so many coders like Star Wars. The Death Star is a nice little item. And I'm happy with it. I don't think I can actually change my view unless I stop my turntable. And let's just take it over the technical. Yeah, and it's nice to have perfect scripts, in my opinion. Perfect things that are working well for you. Don't know why I need this as a model, but yeah, once you start driving data randomly, you lose a little bit of control, but you gain a lot, and you gain a lot of knowledge as well. Thanks for watching.